Hello and welcome back. I'm Joseph Hoffman, and in this lesson we're going to work on playing Sonatina in G, first movement with artistry. Artistry means going beyond just playing all the notes and rhythms correctly. It means playing it beautifully and expressively. We're also going to check out the form of this movement. Let's look at the score to get started. Let's start today by figuring out the form for this first movement of Sonatina in G. I like to think of form analysis as figuring out the most simple pieces of the piece. Pieces of the piece, right? Like a stick figure is so simple, right? 2 legs, 2 arms, and a head. That's the simplest way I know how to represent a person. Well, a form of a piece is the simplest way to represent the structure of the piece. So what are we looking for? We're looking for the big parts, the sections. And how do we know when a section is over? Well, in music, we're looking for the cadence. A cadence is when the music comes to a resting place. Where do you feel the first major cadence in Sonatina in G first movement? Can you point to it? If you're pointing right here, great job. This is where I feel the first cadence. Do you feel how the music comes to rest right there on that G? And then actually, literally, there is a rest in the music, which emphasizes this feeling of we've arrived at a temporary rest spot. Like think if you're making a long journey, sometimes you stop the car, you get out, you stretch at what's called a rest stop, or maybe you stop for lunch, or to fill up with gas. This is a resting place in the music, and that's called a cadence. And it's often placed at the end of a section. So I feel this entire first 8 measures as the A section. So I'm going to mark that A, and that A section comes to an end with this cadence. Now here, beginning in measure 9 would be the start of a new section. And we always have to ask, when a new section begins, is it the same as before or is it different? What would you say? This is a contrasting section. It has new thematic material. The melody is doing something new, the accompaniment is doing something new. We call that a contrasting section. So I'm going to call that B. Now, this one doesn't have as obvious of a cadence, but I also feel measure 16 as a kind of cadence. Listen. Even though the notes don't stop as clearly as here in measure 8, you notice that the left hand plays nothing, and the right hand kind of feels like it's floating a little bit to me here. I'm going to start here in measure 15 again. Hear how those notes just kind of leave you floating in space a little bit. There's a little bit of pause to the feel. Even though there's no literal pause, the left hand stops playing and the right hand just drifts around a little bit, kind of like a leaf floating on the wind. So this sounds to me like the end of the B section. And then what do you notice up here in measure 17? This feels like the start of a new section. Is it something we've heard before, or is it something new? If you said it's another A, you are correct. We have an exact repetition of the A section. If there was some change, we might put a little prime symbol. But if you check every note, this is an exact repetition of our original A. And then that repeats. We go all the way back and do this B, A segment again. So if I were to write out the whole thing up here, we have an A, then we have a B, A that repeats, and then we get to what feels to me like a coda. Why does this feel like a coda to me? One thing about a coda is it will present some new material right at the end of a piece. And another thing about a coda is it usually comes after something that could have been the ending. Could the piece have ended right here? We could have just ended it right there and called it good. We landed on a G, which was the key we're starting in, so we come back home to G. It would be a perfectly fine ending. But a coda is like a bonus chapter. It's an extension that keeps the music going to bring us to an even more satisfying ending. And so this is how I would represent the form for this movement. Let's go ahead and write in coda here. Remember, our symbol for coda is this. One thing that's useful about figuring out the form is as you're performing this from memory, you can use this as a little roadmap in your mind to keep track of where you are. And now let's move away from form to talk about artistry. In this piece, I think it's so much about the phrasing. So you've got to find the phrases. I think of this beginning section in 2-measure phrases. And you see these smaller slur marks. Remember, a phrase mark also is a curved line that shows you where the beginning, middle, and end of each musical idea is. The most common shape for a phrase is to have some kind of climax in the middle. And you can see right here with this high note and the mezzo forte marking that this is going to be a very natural climax. And sometimes I'll mark a climax with a star. Okay, and then there's another climax over here. Dee da 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 da. And then I think of this as a longer phrase. So I want to build up over a longer period of time. And the dynamics support this. We crescendo, then we crescendo some more. And I feel the climax right here as we get to that high G. Very often the climax is the highest note, but not always. So remember, with phrasing, we want to shape the notes and tell an interesting story throughout the phrase and combine that with a beautiful singing tone. Let's try it on the piano. So how will we make this first phrase sing and sing beautifully? It's marked piano, so we want a gentle tone. But remember, piano doesn't mean wimpy. We still want the tone to sing out, but in a gentle way. Notice how I landed gently on that last G. One thing that's common is to overplay your finger 1, your thumb, because it's your fattest finger sometimes, and so it's easy to be heavy on the thumb. You want to be graceful on your thumb. And one thing that can help with that is a gentle float up as you play that thumb. And then as you come up to the top there, remember, this is the climax. So you want that to really sing out. So use some arm weight as you fall on that finger 5 at the top. And then we're going to decrescendo as we go down. And then a new phrase begins. Notice how I'm shaping that. I'm not playing each note the same volume. Listen how boring it would sound if I did. See? I played all those notes the same volume, and that gets boring. Da, 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 da. You want it to be da, 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 da. You want to make it interesting and come alive. Dee, da, 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 da. See, I gave that a shape and made it a little mini phrase within the phrase. Da, 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 da. Dee, da, 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 da. See how that had a shape too? Dee, da, 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 da. And I'm singing because I want the notes to sound like they're singing, not just da 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 da. Dee, da, 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 da. Hear the difference? Make it beautiful. Now it's going to grow some more to a climax. And then we come to the end of the phrase. And phrases almost always end gently. Not always, but 95% of the time. We want a gentle end to the phrase. And one thing that can help with that, notice here in measure 8, I'm going to think of drop down with a lot of arm weight on the A. And then for that decrescendo and the phrase ending, I'm going to float up as I come to that G. A, drop down, G, float up. You're thinking down, up. Now you try. Try it with me. Down, up. So the down is strong, and then the up is gentle. One more time, down, up. Now, with the phrase before, let's go all the way back to measure 5. We're gonna grow some more to here, then down, up. Now, I'd like you to pause the video and on your own, just work right hand alone. And I want you to make every note interesting. And I want every note to sound a little different than the note before it. You're always getting louder or softer. Louder or softer. The notes are always moving. There's always growth or coming back. Da 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 dum, ya da 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 da. Try and tell an interesting story. Shape these phrases. Remember, this piece is from the classical era, which was all about gracefulness and elegance. You don't want it to sound like a rock and roll song. Okay, this isn't that kind of music. It's got to have a grace to it, a beauty, an elegance. Practice right hand alone and see how beautiful you can make those phrases. And then press play to go on. Now, another thing that's so important in this piece is voicing the melody. Remember, your melody should always be a full 2 notches above the accompaniment in most cases. So if I see a piano marking, I actually think melody mezzo piano and accompaniment pianissimo. And then that kind of averages to piano, right? So I'm going to play my left hand pianissimo here. And my right hand more of a mezzo piano. Notice how gently I'm playing that left hand. Pretty much a pianissimo. You want the left hand to not overpower that melody. You want that left hand so gentle. And one way I like to practice that is I play the right hand fortissimo. You probably remember me doing this. And then my left hand isn't even going to play. I'm just going to touch the notes and pretend to play. So that's training my left hand to not be so loud by actually playing silently. I call it ghost playing. So right hand is fortissimo, left hand is ghost playing. And then I might do it again and let my left hand go ahead and play pianissimo while my right hand plays fortissimo. See how different I'm making those two hands. And then I go back to playing it more normally, where my right hand is just going to play beautifully. My left hand is going to play closer to pianissimo. And that's called voicing. Pause the video and work on some voicing by just ghost playing the left hand once while the right hand plays fortissimo. Then let the left hand play just barely. And then try it one more time with a beautiful right hand and a very soft left hand. Then press play to go on. Now, beginning in the B section, here's another place I want beautiful phrasing. See, I want that to feel like it's blossoming, like a flower in springtime. We start soft. And then right there, that's the blossom, okay? So let that sing out as you go up to that finger 5. Let that note really sing out. Then it comes back down. Then it blossoms again. And then notice all these decrescendos. Oops, I can't talk and play at the same time sometimes. So we start with a nice strong top. And then as we're going down the scale, we decrescendo. Coming down, start strong again, come down. Then we come up. And now here's why I say it's good to not always practice with metronome. Because sometimes in music, you don't want to keep a steady beat. At least not a perfectly steady beat. And now I know you're getting more advanced to tell you this because I always say keep a steady beat, keep a steady beat. And that's 99% true. But every once in a while in music, you want to be a little flexible with the beat. And here's one of those moments. Here in measure 16, I'm actually going to start in measure 15. Notice what I do to the beat. Sorry, let me count. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Notice how I took a little bit of liberty. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. I kind of stretched it out. It wasn't a fermata. It wasn't a ritardando. I just let it breathe and float for a little bit. I didn't make too big a deal of it, but if you had had a metronome on, I wouldn't have been keeping with the beat. So I want you to experiment there. The reason you can do that there is you'll notice the left hand isn't playing anything. So it's almost like the composer intended this measure to be a little bit nebulous or free floating. So go with it and see what feels right to you there. But then starting in measure 17, we're back to what's called a tempo, which means back to the regular tempo again. Now, jumping ahead to the coda, make sure that these repeating notes have a beautiful tone, which you can help with arm weight and not pounding them. And remember, those changing fingers can help with that. And on those high repeating notes, even if you stay on your finger 5 there, I know some performers like to change notes even on those high Ds. You could go 5, 4, 3, 1 right there. Or you can go 5, 5, 5, 3. But again, if you want to be fancy, try changing your fingers there. And then going on. Remember the lifts here? Lift. And then we have tenuto marks here. Remember, a tenuto means to give that note a little extra emphasis. We want a triumphant sounding ending. Poco ritardando, which means slow down a little bit, not too much. Too much would be like putting too much mustard on your sandwich, right? A little bit goes a long way. So poco rit, just broaden and feel triumphant at the end. Now, it's your turn to take this piece and make it your own, with lots of careful practicing. You're not just getting the notes and rhythms correct, you're trying to make it a beautiful work of art that you can be proud of. So do some hands alone practice to work on the phrasing, the dynamics, then put it back hands together to work on voicing. And once you feel confident, I hope you'll make a video and share it with a friend, with a family member, or with me. Thanks for watching and learning with me today about the form of Sonatina in G first movement, as well as how to play it with artistry. Happy practicing, and see you at our next lesson. Grow. Hey, Froggy, Froggy. Grow. How would you like to get a close-up look at my teeth? Grow. You're no fun. Grow. And then I saw a big hunk of cheese just sitting right there on the counter. Oh boy. Boo. You'd better run. Scram. Yeah, beat it. We're not scared of you. Yeah, Chef told us all about you. Oh, he did he? Well, did he tell you how sharp my teeth are? We're not interested in your teeth. So anyway, like I was saying, there's this big hunk of cheese. I know who I can try. I was very suspicious of traps, naturally, and so real careful like walked up. Aha! Found you. Sharky! Oh, you know my name, do you? Then you'll also know how fierce and scary I am. Sharky! And how sharp my teeth are. Sharky, play! Play? No. I'm not here to play. I'm here to eat you if you don't run. Play tea party! What? Tea party? You don't understand. Oh,
That's more like it, yes. You better run. Now we're finally getting somewhere. Wait, what's that? Sharky, wear bonnet. Pway tea party. No, I'm not gonna wear that. Are you crazy? I'd look ridiculous. I'm a fierce shark. Wear it. No, wear it. No. Wear it. Wear it. Wear it. Wear it. Wear it.